The shocking reality: smart kids are the most lost. We all grew up believing that being smart was the golden ticket. The straight-A students, the gifted program kids, the ones who read faster, solved problems quicker, understood things most others didn't. We celebrated them. We called them future leaders, geniuses, the ones who change the world. And yet, if you pull back the curtain, if you speak to them years later, something deeply unsettling emerges. Many of them are lost, not just confused but existentially adrift, disconnected from their own desires, dissatisfied with life despite their potential, anxious, burnt out, or paralyzed by possibilities. How can the very trait we idolize, intelligence, lead to such disorientation? This isn't just a random trend. It's a philosophical crisis. Because what we call intelligence is often just conformity wearing a clever disguise. From a young age, smart kids are taught to optimize, to perform, to win, but not to be. They're rewarded for solving problems quickly, not for asking better questions. They're praised for getting the right answers, not for exploring the deeper meaning of the question itself. And so, without realizing it, they become trapped in a system that tells them their value lies in their utility, not in their humanity.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
I think about this: when was the last time someone told a smart kid, it's okay not to know? Or, it's okay to explore without a goal? No, we push them forward faster, higher, better. But what if forward isn't the direction their soul wants to go? What if the internal compass that would guide them toward a meaningful life never had a chance to develop because the external map was already handed to them? This is the paradox that haunts many intelligent people. They are great at thinking but often terrible at feeling. They can analyze life but struggle to live it. They understand systems but they don't understand themselves. Because everything they did was about achievement, not alignment. Success, not selfhood. And here's the kicker: the smarter they are, the more skilled they become at rationalizing their misery. They tell themselves stories like, I should be grateful, I'm just overthinking, or once I reach this next level, I'll feel better. But deep down, the truth gnaws at them. This isn't it. This isn't who I really am. We don't talk about this enough. We don't talk about the existential burden of being labeled smart. The pressure to fulfill potential becomes a prison. Curiosity turns into performance. Learning becomes a race. And somewhere along the way, the inner voice, the one that whispers, "What do you want?" gets drowned out by the applause of others. Until one day the applause fades. The degrees are earned. The job is landed. And all that remains is a person who is supposed to feel successful, but feels empty. So what's really going on here? Why do so many bright minds end up in dark places? The answer lies in the distinction between intelligence and wisdom. Intelligence is the ability to solve problems. Wisdom is the ability to understand which problems are worth solving. Intelligence is knowing how to get ahead. Wisdom is knowing where you actually want to go. We've created a society that rewards intelligence but neglects wisdom. And in doing so, we've raised a generation of high-performing souls who don't know what they're performing for. Here's the uncomfortable question: are you living your life? Or are you just acing someone else's test? Be honest. Because if your deepest fears are about failing expectations you never chose, then you're not free. You're trapped in a maze built by other people's ideas of success. And even if you win, you lose. Because the prize isn't peace, it's more pressure, more performance, more pretending. The saddest part: most smart kids never realize they're lost until it's too late, until the burnout hits, until the depression can't be ignored, until the achievements feel meaningless. And then they start asking the questions they were never taught to ask. Who am I without the grades? Without the praise? Without the plan? And that's when the real journey begins, the journey not of becoming, but of unbecoming, of peeling away everything that was put on you so you can finally discover what was always inside you. In the next part, we'll dive into the hidden cost of over-identifying with intelligence, how it can turn into a mask, a defense mechanism, and even a form of self-abandonment. You'll see why many smart people are emotionally stunted, spiritually disconnected, and afraid of failure in ways they can't even articulate. The genius trap, when intelligence becomes the cage that keeps you from yourself. At first, being smart feels like a gift. You're told you're special. You're praised for how quickly you understand, how easily you adapt, how much potential you have. But slowly, almost invisibly, that gift becomes a trap. Because intelligence becomes not just what you have, but who you are. It becomes your identity, your currency, your shield. And once your worth is tied to your intellect, you become terrified of anything that threatens it. You avoid vulnerability because it looks like weakness. You avoid failure because it feels like exposure. And you avoid asking for help because it suggests you're not as capable as people think. So you build a fortress of competence. But that fortress also becomes a prison. The problem is that when intelligence becomes your mask, you stop growing where it matters most. You become emotionally underdeveloped, spiritually disconnected. You learn how to win arguments but not how to sit with pain. You can solve complex equations, but you can't solve the ache in your chest. You can see the structure of a problem, but you can't see why you keep sabotaging your own joy. And no one ever taught you how to deal with that because they assumed you didn't need help. After all, you were the smart one, the one who figures it out. But what if the thing you need to figure out can't be solved, only felt? This is the silent suffering of many highly intelligent people. They learn to intellectualize their emotions instead of expressing them. They become masters of analysis but novices in authenticity. They defend their minds while abandoning their hearts. And worst of all, they often don't even realize they're doing it because it feels safe. It feels familiar. It feels like success. But deep down, it's just fear. Fear of being seen without the armor. Fear of being ordinary. Fear of being truly known. And here's the paradox. The more gifted you are, the harder it is to admit you're lost. Because you've been conditioned to believe that intelligence is immunity. That, if you're smart enough, you should be able to outthink your pain, outpace your fear, outmaneuver your confusion. But the soul doesn't speak in logic. It speaks in longing. It speaks in silence. It speaks in the moments when you've achieved everything you set out to and still feel hollow. That's when the mask starts to crack. That's when you begin to realize that intelligence without introspection is just performance. And performance, no matter how perfect, is not peace. So what do you do when the very thing that once gave you confidence now makes you feel like a fraud? You stop performing and start listening. You stop trying to be impressive and start being honest. You ask yourself questions that don't have easy answers. Who am I without my intellect? What parts of myself have I neglected in the pursuit of being smart? What would it look like to live a life that wasn't optimized but felt? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because true intelligence isn't just cognitive, it's emotional, relational, existential. It's the ability to hold paradoxes, to admit uncertainty, to stay present with discomfort. And that kind of intelligence doesn't come from books or grades or accolades. It comes from self-awareness. It comes from humility. It comes from daring to be human in a world that worships perfection. In the next part, we'll explore how smart kids often develop a deep sense of alienation not just from others, but from themselves. We'll talk about the loneliness of always being the one who gets it, and how that isolation can lead to a spiritual crisis that no amount of knowledge can fix. The outside illusion Why smart kids feel alone even when everyone wants to be them. There's a strange kind of loneliness that comes with being the one who always gets it. On the surface, you're admired. People come to you for help, they listen when you speak, they assume you're confident and capable. But inside, there's often a growing disconnect, a sense that no one really sees you, only the version of you that's useful, impressive, or put together. And the more you're praised for how smart or capable you are, the deeper the illusion grows. Because while everyone else sees someone at the center of it all, you feel like an outsider watching life, analyzing it, but not quite living it. This disconnection doesn't start in adulthood. It begins early, usually when a child is labeled as gifted or advanced. That label, while meant as a compliment, quietly separates them from others. They're told they're different, and over time they begin to believe it, not just intellectually but existentially. They start to feel like they don't belong, like no one sees the world the way they do. And instead of that difference being celebrated as diversity, it becomes isolation. While other kids connect through shared experiences, shared confusion, shared trial and error, the smart kid is expected to already know, to already figure it out. They become the helper, the explainer, but rarely the one who feels safe enough to say, "I don't know either." And so the smart kid grows up learning how to be competent, but not how to be connected. They learn how to build systems in their minds, but not how to build intimacy with others. They often struggle to feel close to people because they've been taught to prioritize being right over being real. They can hold a conversation, but not a vulnerability. They can solve a problem, but not sit in uncertainty. And that leaves them feeling fundamentally alone, not because they're unloved, but because they've never felt fully known. Then there's the added burden of expectation. When you're smart, people assume you'll do something great. They project their hopes and dreams onto you. And slowly you stop living for yourself and start living for the image others have of you. You become the overachiever, the perfectionist, the one who can't afford to fail. But here's the truth: the more you perform for others, the more you lose touch with your own desires. You become a mirror, reflecting what others want to see, instead of a window showing what's truly within you. And that performance fractures your sense of identity. You begin to ask questions like, if I stop being impressive, will anyone still care? Or worse, if I let people see the real me, the one who's scared, unsure, messy, will they still stay? This is the outsider illusion, the belief that despite all your achievements, you are fundamentally separate, that no one truly understands you, that you must always carry the weight alone. And that illusion is deadly, not because it's entirely false, but because it's so easy to believe, especially when you've spent your life being defined by your output rather than your essence. But here's the quiet truth behind it all: you're not alone. You've just never been given the space to be seen beyond your mind. You've never been invited to show up as a whole person rather than a collection of abilities. And until you break that illusion, until you allow yourself to stop being the one who always gets it, you'll continue to feel exiled from your own life. In the final part, we'll explore how smart kids can finally come home to themselves. We'll talk about the path from performance to presence, from isolation to integration, and how to rebuild a life that honors not just what you can do, but who you truly are. The return to wholeness: how smart kids can stop performing and start living. There comes a moment, sometimes sudden, sometimes quiet, when the performance just doesn't work anymore. When being smart, competent, and praised no longer fills the void. When the applause grows faint, the achievements blur together, and you're left wondering, what am I actually doing this for? That's the beginning, not of another goal or another plan, but of a return to something you may have forgotten along the way yourself. For smart kids, the journey back to wholeness begins with one radical decision: to stop performing and start being. That means letting go of the identity that was built on excellence, and instead embracing a deeper truth that your worth has never depended on your intelligence. It never came from being the best, the brightest, or the one who figured it all out. It came from your existence, your essence, the part of you that exists beyond all labels and expectations, the part of you that simply is. But this return isn't easy. It requires unlearning the belief that love must be earned, that mistakes are shameful, that vulnerability is weakness, that it's safer to be admired than to be known. You have to confront the voice in your head that says, if I stop achieving, I'll disappear. You have to face the fear that without your intellect, you are nothing. And you have to realize that this fear is a lie, one that was planted by a world that values production over personhood, results over reflection, image over intimacy. So how do we begin to live differently? First, we must reclaim our inner world. That means developing emotional literacy, not just understanding ideas, but understanding feelings. It means learning how to sit with discomfort without analyzing it away, how to express sadness without needing to solve it, how to connect with people not through intellect, but through shared presence. This is the work of integration. It's not glamorous. There are no trophies, but it's where life begins to feel real. Second, we must redefine success, not as the accumulation of accomplishments, but as alignment with our inner truth. That may mean slowing down, saying no to opportunities that look good on paper but feel wrong in your body, choosing relationships that support your growth, not just your ego, taking risks that don't guarantee applause, but allow your soul to breathe. These choices are difficult, especially for someone used to being rewarded for staying on the right path, but they are necessary if you want to stop surviving and start living. Third, we must learn to be seen fully. That means allowing others to witness not just your strengths, but your struggles. It means showing up in your relationships without the mask of competence. It means saying things like, I don't know, I'm scared, I feel lost, and trusting that the right people will not only stay but finally see you for who you are, not who you've been pretending to be. Because here's the truth smart kids need to hear most. You don't have to be extraordinary to be loved. You don't have to perform to belong. You don't have to impress to matter. What you're looking for isn't in the next goal, the next accolade, or the next project. It's in the stillness. It's in your breath. It's in the parts of you that were never allowed to speak. You are not a problem to solve. You are a person to embrace. And maybe, just maybe, the real intelligence lies not in how much you know, but in how bravely you choose to live. So stop performing. Start listening. Come home. Because the world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be whole.